our story and a lot of times our pain, the messiness of our story that we want to keep hidden, those are the parts that can really help other people. And so I think that when we put ourselves out there, and especially when we put ourselves out there in any type of position where we're either in a leadership position, a coaching position, a teaching position, or just like an influential position, we owe it to the people who we say we want to help to really help them even when we're hurting. I know now, I am very confident that the marriage I am in is a marriage that God set up for me to be in.
Mhm.
And even with me knowing that, even with me being madly in love with my man, even with all of that, it is still hard work. It is not, and it's not hard work because of anything other than life is just life. It's hard work because I am realizing something new about myself every single day. At this big age, I'm almost 40. My husband just turned 40. And at his big age, he's still realizing and learning things about himself every day. And so here we are, two individuals on our individual paths, trying prayerfully to keep our paths in alignment. That is not easy. And I'm talking about two people who want to do it, two people who are in it, two people who are dedicated, two people who are invested, and it's still not easy. And so I see every single day why the divorce rate is what it is. I see it every day. And then you add in kids in the mix, and baby, the decisions that you got to make on a daily basis, it is overwhelming and unbearable at times.
What is the biggest mistake you see men make when it comes to dating?
Being too pressed to have sex. They need to relax. Biggest turnoff in the whole world. Any woman ever will agree with that. Just relax.
Today's guest is a mom, a wife, has been featured on Essence Magazine, Huffington Post, Tom Joyner Morning Show, and the host of Girl Stop Playing podcast. I found her content on YouTube one day and I was hooked. And I remember one day someone was asking me, they're like, well, why are you listening to Girl Stop Playing Pod? And I'm like, because I need to know more about my wife. I need to know more about women and understanding, So I think it's important that we take time to understand the opposite sex. And I've learned so much from watching her podcast, Bravehearts Community. Let's show some love to Koereyelle Mallard. How are you doing this evening, Koereyelle?
I am amazing. Bedtime went smooth. Hopefully you won't hear my babies in the background. So I am good over here. I'm excited to be here. And thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Yes, for sure. I try to comment on the content as much as I can, but I'll be at work. So anyway,
It's appreciated.
for sure. I want to jump into this topic of just having this real conversation about marriage because, with social media and Instagram and everybody's doing it for the gram and everything is just so beautiful on social media when it comes to marriage. But I want to have these real conversations. And how long have you been married now, Coria?
So I got married January 1st, 2021.
Mhm.
So it'll be 4 years next month.
4 years. All right, 4 years.
Mhm.
Well, do you want to jump into the questions or you want to take this question on the live?
No, let's go. We can go whichever way you want to go. I'm here for the audience, for everybody. So whatever y'all need, I'm an open book.
Awesome, for sure. So the question is, how do you detach from comments and questions that are in a generally statement, but not personalized to you, the person who is being questioned?
How do I detach from questions when I'm hosting my pod or
I believe so. Maybe when you post in your pod, I believe.
so I detach, well, I don't know that I detach from questions. I detach from comments because
Mm.
people's opinions about me is none of my business. I say that and it sounds good, but I still get in my feelings sometimes. But the way that I would say that I do detach from comments would be to know that people's opinions are literally just that, and that someone's opinion of me is not associated with my identity or my opinion of myself. So I hope that that answered your question, but I don't necessarily detach from questions. But the commentary, yes, I think it's necessary sometimes to detach.
Yes, for sure. Did that take a while for you to detach yourself from comments, or was that something that you had to work on, or?
It's a journey. I'm still on the journey. We're working on it every day because, I mean, and I think that it depends on what it is. If somebody says something that triggers you, then that's going to hit you in a way that, if someone says something that is just so far from the truth and it's just not applicable at all, then obviously, it just, goes right over my head or in one ear and out the other. But if somebody says something that is like, oh, it gets you a little bit, then of course, I'm human. We all have feelings, and especially when it comes to the content that we're creating or the truths that we're sharing, because so often it takes so much for you to get out of your own way or get out of your feelings enough to even be vulnerable and share your truth, especially doing it on a platform in front of a lot of people. And so to be able to do that, get the courage to do that, and then somebody criticizes you, it's tough. So I can't say that I just have this thick skin and I don't read any of the comments, but I will say I have grown a lot and I have to keep things in perspective. So it's taken me a long time. I still have not figured it all out, but living offline, I think, makes it easier. When your entire life and identity is wrapped up in like social media, then I think you take everything personally because that's your real personal life. But when you have a personal life outside of people's opinions, I think it's a little bit easier.
Mhm. Love it. That's a great answer. Who inspired you to become the woman you are today?
Ooh. So I won't say that there's a who, as in there's a person outside of me that inspired me to become the woman that I am today, but I will say knowing that I wanted something different than what I grew up seeing inspired me to keep going until I got it. So maybe the lack of seeing what I wanted encouraged me to go after creating that I had not yet seen.
Mm, that's interesting. I love that. Yeah, because sometimes you like, I don't want that at all. I know there's something better for me
Mm-hmm.
than what's being
I'm
seen.
not sure what that is, but I know it's not this. So I'm gonna keep on working and trying to get better and just trying to do the best that I can until I figure out what that better option is.
Mhm. Yes, for sure. What is the biggest misconception single people have about marriage?
Ooh, I would say it is the Cinderella setup, the happily ever after, the Disney movie fairy tale, what we were kind of brainwashed to believe from like romance movies that marriage actually is. And it literally, I won't say it's the opposite of that, but it is not that. It is like a very, very small percentage of the romance and the fairy tale. Now, if you are intentional with your choosing, and if are getting married for the right reasons and to the right person, then there can be a lot of romance and fun and fire and all of that. But life be life in. And I think a lot of single people rightfully so have romanticized the idea of marriage, and I say rightfully so because in our culture, in American society, marriage is very romanticized. We don't ever talk about the true like principles and the foundations that need to be in place in order to have a healthy marriage. And so I think the only conversations are romanticizing it, and this fantasy of this Prince Charming that's going to come along and sweep you off your feet and pay all your bills and make your life better and happily ever after.
Yeah.
But the happy doesn't necessarily last ever after on its own. It takes a lot of intention and time and work for that happily ever after. It's not just an automatic thing, and I think that's the biggest misconception.
I agree. How much, because as I hear you talking about this, how much of our life should we share on social media where you maybe want to be a little vulnerable? Not so much of airing your spouse out, but just kind of showing the humanity side of your life because it's just so easy to take a picture and be like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
everything is great. But do you think you maybe should have a little transparency online, or that should totally be behind closed doors?
I think it depends on the person. I think for me or you, with the work that we do and the lane that we're in, I think it's kind of disingenuous if you are, positioning yourself as this thought leader in the relationship space, but then can't nobody know anything about your relationship. That to me just doesn't make sense because of what we do. I don't think that anybody owes anybody anything in terms of because the internet has made us feel like we are entitled to everything, every detail of your life. And I don't think anybody's entitled to anything outside of what you want to give them. But when you put yourself in this space, if I was a fitness coach, people would expect to see me working out or at least talking about the workouts that I'm doing or, the meals that I'm making. Like people would expect that because of what I do. So because I've been in this space of this relationship space since literally 2012, 2013, and people have seen me go from struggling single as hell to dating, engaged. They've literally seen the entire story. I think that I would be doing myself and the people who have supported me all this time, I would be doing like a disservice to talk all this talk and then kind of leave people hanging. So I think that it is a personal choice. I don't think anybody owes anybody anything, but depending on the decisions that you've made in terms of like the work that you do and the profession that you're in, I think that kind of opens the door for people to at least be curious. I think that you have to come up with your own filter though, because depending on your relationship status, if you are married, if you have kids, your story is not just yours, right? It includes other people. And so I think that we do have to be mindful of how our sharing can affect other people. And that's something that, for me and for a lot of women, that is not something that we're used to considering, where you might have a partner or a spouse that isn't like sharing all their business on social media and don't necessarily want you sharing all their business on social media. So I think you have to be mindful, considerate, but come up with your own filter. And for me, the filter is I'm not going to share anything that I don't want to be questioned about. So I can't share something on social media and then I got an attitude if somebody asks me offline about something that I shared online. So you have to be mindful that these are real people. Sometimes we hit upload and we just think, okay, it just goes out into the moon and the stars and the sky. And then somebody in real life asks us about something we posted online and we're looking like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
know that? Well, you didn't told all your business. So it's just important for you to be mindful of the impact of, what you're potentially sharing, but it's your business. So share as much or as little as you feel comfortable being questioned about.
I like that. Yeah, because I don't know if you know too much about my story, but I was married for 15 years, just about 15 years, and went through a divorce.
Mm.
Hence, scary to remarry, right? So I was doing this before with the relationship coaching, but then all of a sudden, here I am going through a divorce, and I'm just like, so there's people in my church that's like, so what kind of hope you giving us? Now you getting
Mm.
a divorce. And I was just like, oh man. So I felt horrible. But what I did on the back end was since I was already doing this kind of coaching and social media, I was like, well, you know what? I'm just going to announce that I'm going through a divorce, that because I felt like I owed that to the people who followed me, who supported me. So not only did they see the good times, but they see uh, the end of it too.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of felt like I owed that to them, opposed to me just popping back up online like, "Hey, I remarried," and they're like,
What happened to that is it's reality, right? It's reality that every relationship is not going to last, and your credentials, your degrees, none of those things is a recipe for success, like a guarantee that this relationship is going to last forever. And I think if you are in this space, and especially if you're in this space for the right reasons and you really want to help other people, you naturally know that you have to help yourself as well. And one thing that I've definitely learned from having my platform is you never know who you can help just by sharing your story. Like I'm sure after you started, sharing your truth, people came out the woodworks who either needed help or could relate or could offer help to you. And so our story and a lot of times our pain, the messiness of our story that we want to keep hidden, those are the parts that can really help other people. And so I think that when we put ourselves out there, and especially when we put ourselves out there in any type of position where we're either in a leadership position, a coaching position, a teaching position, or just like an influential position, we owe it to the people who we say we want to help to really help them, even when we're hurting.
Yes. I love that. Yes, that is so true. And even to a degree, well, it wasn't funny, but looking back now, it was like once I announced that, there was people in my DMs already, and I was like, I wasn't putting this out there to
For
let you
that,
know that
yeah.
I'm available. I was just like, okay, that wasn't the reason. I wasn't looking for a sob story, but sometimes you
You
just
don't know what you're gonna get with it. Yeah.
you just never know. So we talked about the biggest misconceptions single people have about marriage, but what are some misconceptions about marriage that you in your personal life had to unlearn?
Ooh, biggest misconception that I had to unlearn. So, where do I begin? Um, I think, well, I will definitely say that I'm not talking about other people's misconceptions with my answer. Like I definitely had that misconception as well. And I can't even necessarily say that I have an excuse for having that misconception. And I say that because prior to me getting married, back in 2000, I was engaged in 2009. Did not get married, ended that engagement, called off the wedding. But in 2011, 12, I started a education platform called the Single Wives Club for single women preparing to become wives. And so after that failed engagement, I realized that I was not ready to be anybody's wife. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Like I was not prepared. So I had already gone through this life experience that taught me that you don't just go and get married and then you just ride off into the sunset. Like I knew based on that engagement, I knew that being a wife was a responsibility that I need to prepare for and that I was not ready for. So I knew that. I knew that. I had read all the books. I have taken classes. I have done therapy. Like I have done the things with the realization that marriage is going to be work.
Mm-hmm.
And I married the man that God sent me to marry. I didn't just like I know that the man I was engaged to before, I had no business even knowing this man. I know that. I know now I am very confident that the marriage I am in is a marriage that God set up for me to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And even with me knowing that, even with me being madly in love with my man, even with all of that, it is still hard work. It is not, and it's not hard work because of anything other than life is just life. It's hard work because I am realizing something new about myself every single day. At this big age, I'm almost 40. My husband just turned 40. And at his big age, he's still realizing and learning things about himself every day. And so here we are, two individuals on our individual paths, trying prayerfully to keep our paths in alignment. That is not easy. And I'm talking about two people who want to do it, two people who are in it, two people who are dedicated, two people who are invested, and it's still not easy. And so I see every single day why the divorce rate is what it is. I see it every day. And then you add in kids in the mix, and baby, the decisions that you got to make on a daily basis, it is overwhelming and unbearable at times. And so I think for me, and for everybody, the big just ha ha got you moment is it literally is the opposite of what we have been led to believe that it is at every turn. So the fairy tales set us up in one way, but then just the way that we date as Americans kind of set us up for failure too, because we are used to, okay, this didn't work, I'm on to the next. Like the way that we've been dating since 14, 15, 16, however long you've had boyfriends and girlfriends, that like hamster wheel of just, okay, on to the next, having sex with the next person, on to the next, like that psychologically sets us up for failure. It sets us up for getting out of these marriages. And I do not believe that you should stay in an abusive situation. I don't believe that you should stay with anyone who has abandoned you. Like, I don't believe that you should be sacrificing yourself for this marriage. I don't believe that, me personally.
Mm-hmm.
However, I believe that the way that we have been raised to date leads us towards divorce because it makes us feel like everybody is interchangeable.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, is replaceable, and everything is not necessarily things are not necessarily worth working through.
Mhm.
So I think all of that kind of sets us up for failure. And that to me is why, resources like this, conversations like this are so important, because we are just setting ourselves up for failure by not being honest about what marriage really is.
Yeah, I agree. You said something that was really key about being in this hamster wheel of dating, and it sets us up for, because I do believe, and maybe I need to do some more work on this, but this is my opinion. I do believe that the more we train ourselves in this dating process, and as we know, people get married older now, at an older age. So the more we date and drop people off, and we kind of treat people like the Amazon truck, like we just drop off the shipment and they gone. And I think if we continue to do that, by the time we get married, we've trained ourselves to do our spouse the same way.
Yep.
So I think it's unfortunate, but that's like you said, that's just the world that we live in, unfortunately. And you talked about kids. You have two, right?
Two
Yeah.
little boys,
And how old are they?
1.5 and 3.5.
Oh wow. So how is that? How is it? What kind of dynamic that adds to the marriage? Is there more pressure, or how does all that
Listen,
work?
I don't think people are honest enough about how kids can ruin your relationship. Me and my husband literally we did a whole podcast episode about just like the shock of our lives when we became parents. So our timeline, it was just really crazy. So we got engaged in April of 2020. I got pregnant in June of 2020. And before we could have the wedding, because I literally got pregnant 2 months after we got engaged, we went to Vegas and got married, because we had made it that far. We're like, we're gonna be married before we have this baby. So by the time I got married, I was already pregnant. So I did not have any time to just enjoy being a wife. Like we didn't have that time. We had to figure out husband and wife, and then very shortly after figure out mommy and daddy. And so all of that happened very fast. I experienced my own postpartum ish. I don't necessarily claim that I went through depression, but it is a season. And any woman that has had a child will tell you that it is like an out of body, out of mind experience. And so 15 months, my oldest son was 15 months when I found out I was pregnant again. So I literally had no time to even get through that first postpartum before getting pregnant again. And my second son is about to be 2 next month. So I am literally right now, literally right now, just now starting to feel like, okay, I'm regaining my sanity. Like I'm regaining myself. Not that I'm getting my old life back, because that is long gone.
Yeah.
But I'm just now feeling like, okay, I'm getting on the other side of this. So I say all of that to say our marriage has been one season after, like we have been in seasons of learning how to just be husband and wife for a very short time, learning how to be parents, and then learning how to be parents of multiple kids, and then my husband literally, and I have not even said this publicly. I was not even planning on sharing this, but literally almost 30 days ago exactly had a heart attack. So that's a whole nother layer of ish, that it's like one thing after the next after the next. So when I tell you marriage truly is for better or for worse, and you don't know what that worst is going to be, you don't even know what your own worst is going to be. Because my husband did not plan on having that heart attack. So he
Yeah.
didn't even know. And that might not even be our worst. Okay.
Right.
That's our current worst. But
Mm.
next month, next week, next year might bring another worst. And we have committed to figuring this thing out together. So, yes, kids has made things challenging, but everything brings a new challenge. So, kids were the biggest challenge until this heart attack came along, and that just, completely
Yeah.
took us for another loop. So, yes, but we have figured this thing out, and we'll figure the next thing out. But yeah, every day brings a new challenge, because life literally can surprise you in the next 5 minutes.
Yes. How is your husband doing now?
You would not even believe that he had like, nobody would believe it if you saw him walk through the door right now. Like when I tell you God has carried us
Yeah.
that at every single turn, it was just like, you don't even have to be in this stressful situation. You don't even have to be stressed because God has literally carried you.
Mhm.
So he is fine. You would not believe it. Like, it is just another part of our story. And I know that everything happens for a reason, but
Yeah.
even the fact that that happened and we are working through it and figuring it out is just like, wow, marriage
Mhm.
ain't for the weak, baby. This is not, it ain't for the weak.
It's not. It's not. Wow. Well, I'm glad that he's doing better because I'm like, you're also young, like you're young and vibrant, you know what I'm saying? So and you
Proud of
never know.
God.
Like you said, you couldn't plan that, you
It's
know?
crazy.
And yeah, and those are the conversations that we need to have because what happens when life really happens? Can you really stand that test? You know? Instead of discarding people just because things are a little uncomfortable. Because we have four total. I have a
Mm.
21-year-old daughter, but when I
No
remarried,
way.
yeah, I have a 21-year-old daughter. We have a blended family because she's in Arizona. I'm in Texas. So I have a 21-year-old daughter. We have a 10-year-old from our blended family my wife had before we were together. And then we have two kids together, and the last two are 4 and 6, and they both have autism.
Mm.
So, you talk about not being planned, and that's been a whole process within itself. Um,
Listen,
Having two boys, well, like if I just told you one, like what it took just to pull this off.
prayers. I mean, and I'm not, I am serious when I say that because parenting, period, is crazy. Okay. To add on a layer of just, I'm going to say randomness, because you never know
Mhm.
what your day is going to be. You never know what you are going to get when you wake up. To add on that layer of just unpredictability, my heart goes out to all special needs parents. I mean, my blood pressure be so high over here. It is, I truly cannot imagine. And I just feel like the resources, the conversations, maybe I just don't know about it, but I don't feel like y'all get enough love, support, resources, money. I mean, just therapy, all of the things that it takes. Like, we really need to do better as a community with supporting our special needs kids, because we got to get back to the village, truly. So my heart and prayers
Mhm.
go out.
No, I appreciate that because I did a whole series on uh, autism beyond a diagnosis, and I had other guests come on and share their experiences. And one thing I did notice was that I didn't have any men come on the show because men struggle with that, thinking that their child might have was going to be a football player or a basketball
Mm-hmm.
player, and all of a sudden they have autism, and it's just like, you know. So, but that's a different show for another time. But we was just talking about how life can happen, and
Yeah.
you just never know. So,
And nobody talks about those things that you didn't prepare for. We all have a vision of what our life is going to look like, what our marriage is going to look like, what our parenting, what all of it's going to look like. But what do you do? And are you able to regroup when that vision looks a little bit different, especially when
mhm.
it's a shared vision, right? Because y'all were on the same page about this thing that y'all wanted, but now this is not necessarily what either one of y'all signed up for. This is not what we prepared for. How are we both going to rationalize this? How are we both going to be on the same page? Like, ooh, marriage is just,
It's real because my wife is a nurse, so she picked up on it quick. She was something ain't right. He's not
mm,
talking. He's not doing this. Me on the other end, I was lost. And to be honest with you, I really maybe just about a year ago, Coriel, just really come to the realization like, okay, this is my life now. Like I was, I was taking care of my kids and stuff like that, but just having that acceptance,
mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like just having that one way I saw things, and like you said, this is where we at now. And once you get into that reality, then I believe things become a little bit easier for you because now you're not dealing with that what if.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle conflicts or disagreements in your marriage? And how have your methods changed over time?
um, so in my self discovery and therapy and soul searching and all of the things, I have realized that my natural inclination to avoid conflict, because I don't want to argue, is not healthy. I've realized that in avoiding conflict, I can actually be creating the conflict that I am trying so hard to avoid. That is what I've learned in my big age. So my natural initial way of handling conflict is just to not handle it. And what that means is I'm not going to talk about it. I'll figure it out. I'll work it out. I'll get over it. I'll. And that is not healthy to take on the responsibility of whatever this thing is that I just could have a simple conversation about. So that is how my communication, or I don't know if you said communication or conflict resolution.
Oh,
Either way,
conflict.
same
Yeah.
answer. That
Mhm.
is how I've had to kind of change, is having the hard conversation up front so that I don't have to have a terrible conversation on the back end. Because either way, we're gonna have to have a conversation. So the mature me now realizes that I should just talk about it today, right? Versus waiting a month or 2 months or 6 months or pretending like I can wait forever when, I can sweep it under the rug, but eventually the rug is going to pile up and then I'm going to start tripping. Literally, I'm going to trip over the rug. I'm going to trip over this ish. I'm going to trip over something really small that you've done because I should have just talked about whatever I needed to talk about 6 months ago. So that is what I have learned, and what I have, how I've had to shift is just almost not looking forward to the tough conversations, because I definitely am not there, but just not shying away from them, not seeing them as a problem, not seeing every disagreement as an argument. That's
Mhm.
what I'll say.
Yeah.
So approaching conflict in a mature way versus trying to avoid it.
Mhm. Yeah, and I struggle with that too because, and I had to realize sometimes you just got to go to war. Just go ahead and get it out the way. I've struggled in that area just because I grew up in that era of children are seen and not heard, so it
Mm.
stunted my emotional maturity, or my communication. Um, so I'm there with you. And we was in our marriage class, and we've been learning like the I statements, I feel, opposed to you, that whole
Mm-hmm.
thing. It just takes a little pressure off when it's I feel,
Mm-hmm.
so I want to because this is a great conversation, but I want to take a second to talk about our Love Fearlessly game card deck. And this is for whether if you're in a relationship, whether if you're newlywed, whether if you're dating, married, how many years. My wife and I put this dating card deck together. And so there's 30 cards. But Koereyelle, I want to ask you one question from the card deck.
Let's do it.
Who provided a safe space for your feelings in childhood?
My daddy.
Mm,
That's easy.
yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely a daddy's girl. So I can credit him with a lot of my greatness, but definitely creating a safe space.
Mm. And how do you think that has helped you in your marriage? Like, how do you think this, having that growing up as a child, how do you think that might have been an advantage to where you are now?
Oh, it is the reason that I
Mm,
am where I am now. I've talked publicly and extensively about my mommy issues and me dealing with that. And so when I say that my daddy was like my saving grace as a little girl, I can literally see a direct, not correlation, but it's literally almost the same now. I feel like my husband has very much so, not that he's saving me, but my husband has very much so created a safe space for me, for my feelings, for my heart, for my dreams, for all of the things. He is very much so similar position as my father, and I know that because of the relationship that I have with my father, that is why I am able to have, I think, such a strong relationship with my husband.
love it. What advice would you give to newlyweds about navigating tough times?
Get a therapist and go together, please. And schedule those therapy appointments in advance so that you are not like me and you getting up booking that appointment at 3 o'clock in the morning when your husband and pissed you off. And then it becomes like, I'm telling on you. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Be
Mm.
better than me. Okay. Don't do like me. Be better than me. My biggest advice would be have therapy sessions on the schedule. Like they are just there. You know that it's coming. You don't have to wait until something is wrong. It's on the schedule. And therapy is amazing because it literally it should create a safe space, and it should create a non-biased third party, where you can fight against the problem together versus y'all sitting at your house fighting each other, and not even addressing the real problem.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Because my wife and I, we were in therapy. We have our individual therapist, and then we have like the marriage therapist piece.
That too.
Yeah, that has
Mm-hmm.
helped us tremendously because now we can work out our own issues, but then on top of that, we can come together and then talk about, us.
That is really good too. Is having the individual therapist, and especially for the husband, because a woman will go to therapy for 35, she'll go to therapy every day for her whole life, and this man will go to couples therapy,
Yep.
but not so eager to go to individual therapy. And it is very, very hard to work together on a relationship when you're not willing to work by yourself on yourself. It is
Yep.
very hard.
I love that. That is so true. Yeah, because men, we like to be an island, and that's not healthy for us either. So it is important for us to have, work out our own issues, because those very issues we can be bringing to you, and you're like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to help you, bro.
Yeah,
You know?
that's a real thing. And you can't only value the marriage. Like you can't only want to be a better person for this marriage. You should desire to literally be the best version of yourself. And a lot of times that does require therapy. Not that you have to be in therapy. I don't know that I subscribe to the theory of being in therapy like for the rest of your life, or that is just like a thing that you do. I don't know personally. You can do whatever you want to do, but seeing a therapist, right, acknowledging that there are some areas that you can afford to grow in, I think is really what it comes down to. And not having the mindset of, I'm just showing up for the marriage.
Mm, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, because you need to be good. Both of y'all need to be good in order to make the marriage work. Or one person gonna be pulling more of the weight. I remember therapy session I had probably about 6, 7 months ago. He told me, he was like, "Man, sound like you got mommy issues." I was like, "Me? I got mommy issues? Me?" And I started reflecting, and I was like, "Oh, I got mommy issues."
Most of us do,
Oh,
one
yeah.
way or another.
Oh my God. Yeah. And but once I got that revelation, I was like, okay, I need to tighten that up, you know.
And that might not have been something that might have come up in a couple session, but that's information, and coming up with a resolution or figuring out that issue definitely will impact your marriage. So that is why it's so important to figure out you as an individual alongside investing in your marriage.
Yes, for sure. Ah, this is so good. I have a bonus round before we get ready to end. This is Koereyelle Uncut. This
Oh,
is,
okay.
yeah, this is no holds barred. Whatever comes out your mouth is what it is.
Okay.
Okay, random questions. What is the biggest mistake you see men make when it comes to dating?
Being too pressed to have sex. They need to relax. Biggest turnoff in the whole world. Any woman ever will agree with that. Just relax.
Yeah, they tripping. Uh, fill in the blank. My last relationship taught me.
As in before my husband?
Yeah, yeah, before your husband. Before your husband, because I get a lot of single women that they want to hear from married women, but also like the previous life, right? Like some people want to know, like, how are you before marriage?
awful. I had awful, awful, horrible choices in men. Every relationship taught me what I did not want in a man. All of them. All of
Mm,
them.
mm,
Everyone until this one.
mm. I hear you. From seeing your parents' relationship, what did it teach you about relationships?
What type of marriage I did not want to have?
Who makes a better spouse? Someone never married or someone divorced?
Someone divorced.
Expound on that.
Let me tell you, my ears perked up. I probably was not going to talk to my husband again until he mentioned that he had been previously married. Like on our first
Mm.
date, when we sat down and were having a conversation, everything he said might have just went in one ear out the other. But when he mentioned that he had been married before, I think I probably sat up straight and really tuned into what he was saying. I think that the amount of wisdom that
Mm.
you should have after going through a failure, because anybody who gets married does not get married to get a divorce. So after failing in that way and losing in a major way, I think you would have learned a lesson of what not to do, what to do more of, what to do less of. Especially, well, only if, I guess we're only even talking about people who are interested in marriage. So someone who is interested in marrying again and figuring it out, getting it right, hands down, I would choose that 1,000 times over somebody who is living in a fantasy. Because in my opinion, anybody who has not been married before is subscribed to that fantasy of what they think marriage is going to be versus someone who has lived it. Even if they have lived a nightmare, they know what they don't want anymore. And so I hands down would pick the divorced
Mm.
man all day.
Interesting. So that's when, so you listened when he said he'd been through a divorce.
Then
Wow.
I'm like, oh, what you got to, now we talking. Now we're talking about something. I think that I was so, and at this time I was 31. I was definitely dating for marriage, and I
Yeah.
had this organization, the Single Wives Club. So I was very much so knowing that I was a single woman, but desiring to be a wife. So in my mind, when this man sat down and told me that he was divorced, he was literally a single husband. Like that's literally what he was. It was meant to be.
Mm. Wow. That's good. That's a good one. I like
That
that.
was God, man. It was nothing but God.
Amen. What is harder for you to say? A, I apologize. B, I need help. C, I love you. Or D, I was wrong.
I need help. I can apologize all day. I have no problem with that. But me admitting that I can't figure this out and you need to help me, yeah, it's that one.
Yeah. No, I hear you. That's real. Is that pride or is it just that you've been doing stuff for so long on your own? Like what is
I think it's both. I think I was definitely, I was raised to be the strong Black woman like every other Black woman. And I have such a long history of, I got married late technically, right? We didn't start dating until I was 31. So for 31 years or however many adult years, I was used to doing things on my own and I did them well on my own. So to have to, need help, that's pretty uncomfortable. So yeah, it's pride and it's all of the things. I'm getting
Mhm.
better at it, but that one is definitely the hardest still.
Yeah. No, for sure. Because, men, we like to feel needed. You know what I'm saying? Hey,
And
baby.
it makes that makes it easier. Having a man that wants to help, that doesn't make you feel like you're begging or you're, like you are a burden. That definitely makes it easier. And most women, I think the struggle comes in, it is the strong Black woman thing. That is definitely in the
That's right.
back of our head at all times. But the other part is don't make me feel some type of way for needing some help. Right? Don't say you
Mhm.
want a woman to be vulnerable and then you throw it in our face or you make us feel bad or you make us feel like we should have just figured out on our own. Those situations and us encountering those things is what makes it harder for us the next time. So most people, we don't want to just be alone doing hard stuff on our own, but we've had so many circumstances of it not working out or somebody talking about us for needing help or, whatever, that we
Mhm.
just like forget it. We'll figure it out on our own.
That's true. Nah, I hear you because yeah, I can't stand that. You know, you need some help, and then the first thing they say is, "But what
Anything
about
other
that
than here
time?"
you go.
And yeah, you like, nah, you can keep it. Last question: is it easier to love yourself or someone else?
Mm. It's definitely easier to love someone else, and it should not be.
Expound.
We are not, self-love is not something that is high up on the list that most of us were taught, as kids. Even one of my son's teachers, he said something that stuck with me, and I think it kind of demonstrates this. He said that whenever a child, one of his students would come running up to show him something like a picture or something the kid drew, they would say, "Hey, do you like it? Do you like it? Look at my pretty picture." And he would never say, "Oh, yes, your picture is beautiful. I love it." He would only ask them, "What do you think about it?" Because he
Mhm.
wanted to instill in them that what they thought about themselves and their work mattered more than somebody else's opinion. And I was like, wow, that is so opposite of how we operate. Like, we are so hell bent on praising other people that we don't put that same time and energy into praising ourselves. And we're so hell bent on other people praising us and other people's opinions mattering so much that we forget to value our own opinion. So that kind of goes back to, that original answer of like, everybody's opinion, your opinion is not mine.
Yeah.
So me learning that for myself, and then, hopefully me teaching my kids that as well, that what you think about you matters more than what anybody else out there thinks about you. So we are not taught, to value our opinions of ourselves. We are taught to impress other people and care so much about them. And I interpret that as loving other people more than, we
Mhm.
love ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah, because and that is so true because I heard a therapist talk about the talk that we have in our head. Is it more
Mm,
positive or is it more negative? And he said that if we're talking more negative to ourselves, he said there's no way that you will allow somebody else to talk to you like that,
exactly.
but you would do that to yourself,
Yep.
you know? So I was like, man, I was like, yeah, I gotta do better because I can beat myself up quick. It don't take much.
Quick. You would truly, the things that we say to ourselves, we would never say that to a friend. We have to start befriending ourselves. And it is so unnatural. It is so opposite. It sounds crazy. But the way that and even like our kids, right? The way that you can just love
Yeah.
on your kids and just make them feel special and loved and seen and needed. We got to figure out how to do that for ourselves, but it's so hard, especially if you've never had anybody do that for you. You literally weren't, nobody modeled it for you. And so, I think of this often with the whole gentle parenting thing. It's like the concept is great, but doing this in real life every day, I've realized that part of the challenge in being gentle with your children is that you've never had the opportunity to be gentle with yourself.
Mm.
And that is not a comfortable or natural thing for a lot of us. And so a lot of this is like unlearning what we've been taught and like slowing down and even taking into account why we think the way we think and why we believe the things that we do, because so much of it is just, it was just like abusive. It was just, yeah, we got a
Yeah.
lot of unlearning to do for sure.
A lot of unlearning, yeah, because sometimes I have to catch myself and sometimes I'd even just probably have to just put my hand on my heart for a second, like, Sean, you okay?
Mm-hmm.
You okay? Or be kind to yourself today. Show yourself some grace today.
Yep.
That whole thing. So I have to catch myself. So I'm still a work in progress because so I get it. Koereyelle, this has been a phenomenal episode.
Thank
Thank you
you.
once again for taking some time out your busy schedule to be a guest. Like I
My
don't take this
pleasure.
lightly. You was probably on one of my Mount Rushmore to people that I wanted to interview personally. So this has been huge to me.
Yeah.
Definitely want to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing in this space. Because I have learned so much from your platform. I have learned so much from some of your guests, majority of your guests, right? Learn so much. Even sometimes I share your reels and they get millions of views. Like they're still going crazy on Instagram. Some stuff that I shared from your content from a reaction video. So I want to acknowledge you for doing the work in this space and being like positive and healthy and trying to help people. We need more of that. So thanks again for your platform. I appreciate everything that you do for our community. Can you let everyone know how they can get in touch with you?
Of course. Well, thank you so much. All of the support, the kind words, it really means a lot. And I don't take it for granted. It truly, truly means a lot. So I am Koereyelle on all platforms. I'm sure y'all can find my name somewhere. It's pretty tricky. It's got a lot of E's, but if you just type in Koer on most of the platforms, I should come up. My podcast is Girls Stop Playing. It's Girls Stop Pod on Instagram. Every single week, we release new episodes. I am on a mission to help Black women stop playing with their potential so they can make the money and get the honey. I truly believe that we can have it all. We just got to be willing to work for it. And it is my goal to help you do that. I also have a nonprofit organization called For the Culture Foundation, where we believe that in order to help the Black community, we have to heal the Black family. And we are in the process of rolling out some really amazing resources to do just that. So if you would like to learn more, or if you want to volunteer, donate, support, sponsor any of the things, log on to thecurefortheculture.com. We are currently doing a fundraiser where we are giving away a staycation every single month, beginning in January. So one mom a month is going to get a night away so she can get some uninterrupted sleep. We're sponsoring her dinner, giving her a massage and a therapy session. So if you would like to enter to win, if you are a local Atlanta mom, or if you want to donate and support a mom winning a staycation, you can log on to thecurefortheculture.com. Thank you so, so much for this opportunity. I enjoyed it.
Wow, yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm gonna have all that information linked up in the description below so everyone can get in touch and
Thank you.
sponsor and support. Love the work that you're doing once again. If you are watching this via YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, share this with a friend. Uh, when this video comes out, put it in your group chat with your friends, because you just never know who can help somebody just by watching this. And you've been your group chat and you're talking to your friends, put it in a group chat. If you are listening to this via podcast, through Apple Podcasts, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well and leave a rating and review. By doing so, put you in a drawing for a free Amazon gift card. Who doesn't like free stuff? This is Sean Heineman with special guest.
Koereyelle.
All right, Brave Hearts community, take care.